caught off guard, as if we'd mistakenly walked in on something very private. It seemed a bit out of place, so solemn, so serious, amidst laughter, twinkling lights, and hot chocolate. We walked right past, a little uncomfortable actually, and though my heart ached and drew me back, I assumed it was too much, beyond their understanding, and certainly not something any self-respecting teenager would be caught doing, especially in public. So I kept walking, and they tugged on my sleeve. Let's go back. So we did. As we stood and watched in awe and silence, again I thought, this calls for too much. They're not ready. So I suggested we walked up the sides, taking the easier path to the top. I thought all they really wanted was to get to the top, to see the statue, carved and calling. So we did, quietly walking the path, observing others, respectfully, silently, as their murmuring softly came to our ears. And when we reached the top, we walked on. Again, they tugged on my sleeve. We want that. What? We want that. Do you understand? I asked. We do, they replied. Can your knees take it? They can, they said. All right then, I said with tears in my eyes. But what will we say, they asked. Trust the Holy Spirit, I said. God will give you the words. And so we went back, and we did it a different way. We climbed the pilgrimage on our knees, 28 steps, reflecting on the agony of Jesus as he climbed the stairs to stand before Pontius Pilate. And later, they would say, it was the best part of the entire night. Longing for God. The ancient fathers said it's what we were made for. That longing is a honing device. The aching naturally returns us to God like a beacon in the night, like a watchtower guiding us home, like a star, so brilliant we cannot help but look for it in the sky and stare in amazement. In ancient times, it was the heavens that revealed God's activity in the life of mortals. The heavens declared his glory. Stars moving and shifting were a sign from God that the divine was at work. Looking up to see changes in the night sky, constellations shifting, new stars appearing, or shooting unexpectedly and falling from the sky would shake the world. And they would be astonished, flabbergasted, intrigued, and probably a little afraid. Just the other night, the moon was so bright it woke me. I wondered if I'd left the outside lights on. I went to the window and looked out and saw the garden all lit up like a spotlight was on it. What is that? I wondered. Where's such a light coming from? It can't possibly be the moon. It's too bright. I went downstairs and opened the door, and sure enough, the moon was like a brilliant light in the sky, so big and round, shedding this tremendous light on my house. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and it could have been day. I stood in amazement at the brilliance of the moon, and I wondered, could this have been what it was like for the wise men? Astronomers, They would have been watching. They were mapping the skies, reading the stars, watching for signs. Something amazing was happening in the heavens, some phenomena, and their hearts grew more excited as they came to believe that something remarkable was approaching. They knew of a great prophecy that said a king would come one day. News of it had reached even the most foreign lands and those who lived hundreds, perhaps thousands of miles away. Watchful, ever watchful. When the heavens began to shift, they knew it was a sign they were determined to follow. They could have just stayed where they were. They could see just fine. No one was sitting in front of them, their head blocking their way. No other camels were rearing their heads and blocking the view. The instruments they had, knowledge and wisdom, they knew more about the skies than anyone else. As astronomers, they could have watched the phenomena from their own seat in the comfort of their own homes. But they were compelled to go. Something pulled at them and told them to go and see it for themselves. We don't really know if the wise men knew each other. The Gospel of Matthew doesn't give us many details. Did they study together? Were they from different towns? How far apart? Did they start out together or did they meet on the road? That's not really what's important. Rather, it is that they went. They left the comfort of their homes and they went on a very long journey, a pilgrimage, with absolutely no idea what they would find. All they had was a promise that a mighty king would come and set things right. They weren't Jews. They had no reason to believe, no reason to climb out of bed and pack their bags and get ready to travel through the deserts or the hot sands, the unpredictable weather, the ache in their bodies from sitting upon the backs of camels for weeks upon weeks. But the prophecy compelled them to go beyond their discomfort and follow the star. They could not do otherwise. The promise was more important than how they felt. Something life-changing was about to happen and they were going to be a part of it. Nothing could stop them. That star, it was like a magnet pulling them across unknown lands, and they knew it was time to go, to leave it all behind in search of something wonderful. But what they found is not what they expected. You see, they were waiting for a king, fully grown, proud, trained, ready. They were looking for a castle, guards, majesty. That is why they brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh, gifts worthy of a king. What a surprise to find a child. Can you imagine it? There's no kingdom, no throne, no crown, and they have traveled so very long and from such a far distance. It's not even a manger scene with angels and shepherds. Instead, they approach a little stone house where a young mother meekly opens the door, and inside sits a child, carefully watching his father carve, perhaps mimicking the movements with his own hands, preparing for his father's trade. Awe, pure, life-changing, mind-blowing epiphany. The wise ones laid down their gifts and allowed the awe of the moment to wash over them, transformed, surprised, changed. They would not be the same from that point forward. They followed a star as closely as they could through unknown territories and dangers, and God brought them to a king as promised, but not as expected. Instead of pomp and circumstance, they find him precious, vulnerable, accessible to all. Can you imagine? You expect a tremendous golden-laden, brilliant, glorious castle with hundreds of servants and a vast army at your beck and call, a banquet, a feast beyond your wildest imaginations, and God surprises you because you could have never imagined this. Back at La Salette in the Festival of Lights, we too had followed many twinkling stars through winding paths that brought us to this unexpected place. The young girls all stood at the bottom of the stairs and one by one got down on their knees, trusting the prayers would come, trusting their desire to experience God, trusting that the urge in their hearts to seek Jesus would make the pain in their knees worth the journey. Their demeanor changed. They sank deep into their hearts, and slowly and diligently they climbed. They had no idea what to expect, no idea what they would feel. They weren't even sure how to do it. But they went. They went to find Jesus. But the story's not over. In fact, the most important piece, I think, is the very last line. And they went home by a different way, or a different road. That is the heart of Jesus. He is the way. And following him means we must be willing to explore the unknown, to go somewhere we've never been before, to bear the discomforts, the irritabilities, the yearnings to go back to what we know. That we stay the course and give our total selves to the journey. Even when the sands start flying in our faces and the sun is too darn hot, even when the ground is hard and our sleeping bags are not enough to guard us against the chill of the night. Because the promise is that if we are wise and seek to walk in his way, we will discover a life and a God that we could never have imagined. And we too will go home by a different way.